nice access right there. Rainy day. Why wouldn't we choose a smoky, rainy day to do anything deer for the first time in 7 months? All right, well, here it is. We're in late June. Got some rain finally. Of course, it falls on the day that I finally get out and do some deer stuff. I, as of yesterday, had 0 acres to hunt for this fall. Long story short, the farms that I was hunting with my last coworker ended up, he just got them, and so I resumed the search, and I'm trying to find some pieces of property that are closer to my girlfriend, make my relationship a little easier in the fall. But this first piece we came to, we got real lucky, as you saw on the drive in. It looks like they baled all the way around this cornfield, and we thought we were gonna have to walk through it, and you know, already ease of access is there. And I love it because we can come, it's a big chunk of timber that goes right along this river. And looking right here on Onyx, one of my favorite things about this is we're trying to identify pinches. Well, this is the skinniest part of the whole draw. It's 58 yards across, roughly, from field edge to river. And as you can see, it obviously widens out, you know, as you go down this river. So definitely no idea what's here. Know there's gonna be deer in the area. We're gonna go in here and look for some sign, and specifically we're gonna try to find sign that would come from the fall. Put out some cameras, because why not? We'll get walking here and figure out, see if we can find anything. And something's bedding in there. See that? Pretty sweet spot, huh? Oh, yeah. All right, guys, welcome back to Midwest Whitetail. Another week's episode coming at you. We're gonna jump to Owen Reigler. It's been a less than ideal summer as far as rainfall goes, and some of us are actually experiencing a abnormally dry to moderate drought. Owen's going to talk about how he thinks that's going to impact antler growth, some of his best trail cam strategies for a dry year like this, and then following that, we're actually going to jump to Kaleb. He's been hard at it as always, going to give us an update on that GQ Junior deer that he and Lee are strategizing on every single day, and let's just say he's very, very big. So once we get done with all that, we're going to check back. As I mentioned, we're out boots on the ground. These are some new permission farms of mine. Not exactly the most traditional big buck farms, but I think there's some spots that we can get into some good action this fall. And at the end of the episode, you have to stick around. I'm going to reintroduce somebody I think you all will be very excited to see. We'll show you what we found today, and hope you enjoy the show this week. How do you feel about this rain, Owen?
As a farmer, have you ever got to the point where you prayed for rain? Well, here it is. Pretty happy about it. So might save our crop right here. It was getting to be dire need. This is sweet.
What about your deer?
Well, yeah, that too. We'll take a second here to talk about these weather patterns we've been having here in southern Iowa. Really across the Midwest, it has been extremely dry. This pond you can see behind me, this was finished in early April. And so you can see how much water it's got in it now. And that's all from a rain we got just this morning. So it's been, you know, a moderate drought here, working towards severe, and I know there's places worse than this. So some things we can talk about in regards to that is, one would be, you know, antler growth on your bucks. You know, how does that affect your antler growth? You know, in areas like this where you've got a lot of ag, maybe you've got soybeans, you've got alfalfa, I don't think it's gonna make a big difference. As long as you got enough moisture, you know, to get that spring green up, get your beans out of the ground, get your alfalfa up. That stuff is kind of drought tolerant, drought proof, you know. If you don't have that, if you live in a different area, it's probably gonna make a big difference, you know, if it's mainly browse. You know, the quality of browse is gonna be way down. And I've heard guys say, you know, they think maybe you'd get a drop 25, 30% antler reduction. So we'll see how this plays out, but I bet you'll see some giants killed in Iowa this year, and so I expect them to still have a good growing year with the ag we have in this area. You know, another thing to talk about is EHD and how is this going to play out, you know, for this fall. You can see, you know, everybody talks about these mud flats. If you look at this pond, obviously, I mean, there's mud flats all around the whole thing, and all the ponds that have already been full are about the same way. So I know some guys that'll feed ivermectin, garlic, probiotics, you know, just to try and keep the deer healthier. I think that's a great idea. I don't do it personally. You know, I just kind of roll the dice in that regard. Some guys will dig out their pond dam and just drain the pond and just, you know, let it grow up to grass and stuff like that. And there again, I'm not going to do that. You know, I got kids that like to fish and things like that, so I'm not going to empty out my ponds, and so I just kind of roll the dice with it. But you know, there's some things you can do, of course. The other thing I wanted to talk about, in drought conditions, where do you like to put your cameras? One for me is, obviously, I think water sources are going to be a big draw. So any water source you've got during a drought is a great place. And then as far as food sources, alfalfa is going to be good. You know, that's pretty drought tolerant like I talked about before. Soybeans is going to be another good one, which is typically where you would put them anyway in the summer. You know, clover is the only one that, my clover right now is brown, which I would normally have some stuff, cameras on clover, but right now that's just not a good spot. So, and one word of caution going back to EHD that I just thought about is just, I would stay away from putting anything over your cameras by these ponds when they're receded water like this. So I wouldn't go throw corn out in front of my camera by a pond, because you're bringing the deer up to where, maybe where that midge lives, you know. So I wouldn't want to bring them to that. You know, if they're there naturally and you're getting pictures of them, fine, but just one word of caution as far as throwing anything out, you know, by your ponds. And you know, I'm looking to get cameras out here in the next 2 or 3 weeks, and we're going to try and find back that Loch Ness buck. And I know somebody else, Mr. Kaleb Greiner, has had his cameras out, so let's join him and see what he's found so far.
First camera of the day. I'll pull this card real quick, Shay. There we go. So we're on Lee's South Farm today. Last time you guys saw us, we were, I believe, putting this Cuddy Link chain up. We only had 4 cameras on it. And you know, the whole goal was try and get this new axe feed out and try and find this GQ Junior buck. And lo and behold, he showed up the first day that we put that feed on. You know, it's been really exciting the last couple weeks. Shane and I have been driving around, and they're just velvet bucks after velvet bucks, and they're starting to finally get to the point where they're recognizable. And that's been really fun. You know, we have put a few cameras back home as well. And there's been one deer that so far this summer I've set out to try and find, and he finally popped up, and that's Guards. It looks like he's throwing some extra stuff on that left side. You know, Steve and I are really pumped up for that deer. So we're really looking forward to fall coming up here soon. But you know, today we're just talking about trail camera strategy in the summer months. My summer camera deployment is a little different than my fall. You know, I'm covering a few different locations than I would normally cover, but at the same time, I'm still putting my cameras in spots that are not just covering mineral or feed. I'm also covering trails, scrapes, stuff like that that's gonna better serve me, that's gonna give me some kind of intel, so in the fall I can hunt, maybe based off that intel. One thing that you have to start with, though, is your conditions that you have in your summer. You know, this summer we haven't had a lot of moisture. I say that, and we literally just got dumped on the last couple of days. We've gotten close to 2.5 inches here, but you know, the past few weeks, I've been in the field every day, and I've been seeing a lot of these deer have been gravitating towards water. Mostly bigger water sources like ponds, because our creeks are so dry, there's no water left in them. They're mostly just gravitating towards ponds now. So when I'm taking the drought conditions into account, I'm probably gonna start putting my cameras close to water sources. Now, talking about cameras that can serve you better in learning the deer movement on a farm, we're talking about finding good trails, good crossings, and try and find the trails that these deer are gonna use more so than other trails. There's no way to really justify that obviously right now, but if you find a trail that these deer are using continuously on a day-to-day basis, probably a pretty good chance that that's a trail that they're gonna use again in the fall, and it's a spot that you probably wanna run a camera on. And then my third favorite location in running of camera for the summer is a vine scrape. And I'm very purposeful when I put these vine scrapes up. I will put them in the timber and crossings where I don't have a stand or something, but I also like utilizing my vine scrapes in the summer months right next to my stands. I have talked about it a lot. I've seen that these vine scrapes, if you start them in the summer, they will turn into a community scrape. You'll have fawns hitting them, does, bucks of all age classes. So in bow hunting, one thing that we're always looking for is something to help bring these deer closer to the tree to present an opportunity. So we'll give a couple examples of how we're gonna do that. We're gonna go look for a couple new trails. You know, Lee added CRP onto this farm 2 years ago, and most everything that is CRP was big ag. So the movement on the farm's changed drastically. We're gonna go out, look for some trails today, find some crossings, and start pinpointing which trails might be better locations to run these cameras in the fall, because the whole goal of putting these cameras out early on trails like this is to pinpoint which trails are better. That way we're not walking around in October, November, moving our cameras right where all the deer live and spooking them up over to the neighbors. So let's go put some cameras up, go find some good locations, and start finding out the deer movement on this farm. This spot, this is one of my 3 methods, vine scrapes in the summer. And location plays a big role. You know, the reason I picked right here, we're in the middle of a big alfalfa food source. This is about 5-6 acres in size, but alfalfa is a great food source for these deer, not only in the summer, but also in October, November. So we want to monitor what deer are coming out here. You know, 1 camera per 5-6 acres of alfalfa, especially when you're surrounded by bedding. It's really hard to get all the deer on camera, but one way that I found that helps get all the deer, or at least the majority of the deer, condensed down into one area is by putting a vine scrape somewhere in the middle of that plot. So not only will you attract deer to your camera by putting a vine scrape up, this is also going to serve you in the fall as well, because we're creating a community scrape. These deer are going to hit this scrape all summer long, and they're going to continue to hit it in the fall. So if you were to pair a vine scrape right next to your stand, it'd be a great opportunity getting those deer in the bow range. It's just a great way to manipulate deer, not only to get summer inventory photos, but to make your stand or your spot even better. But this is the first method, and probably my favorite method, in getting summer inventory photos and just creating something that can better serve me in the fall. Let's go throw some more cameras up, right? This is hopefully where we're gonna kill GQ Jr. I think this is where Lee actually called a shot in an earlier interview we did for the buck when we found a shed not long ago. But GQ Jr. lives right over my shoulder. This is his core. This is the South Clover plot. And there's a stand in this shagbark right over my left that every time I look at it, I'm just picturing this deer walking by. And you know what? This is one of the cameras that we put up in that original chain last time you guys saw us. He's been walking by this scrape post utilizing this mowed trail. And what we want to do now is try and figure out where he's entering the plot. So my second method of running cameras in the summer is solely just on trails, beat down trails. I kind of think of trails like veins. You know, you have main veins and little veins that go off on other places, but we're looking for that main vein, that main trail that these deer are using on a day-to-day basis instead of just every once in a while. So we've got about an acre clover plot here in size, and the way that we're going to put these trail cameras is we've identified there's 2 major trails coming into this plot. There's one in the southeast corner and one in the southwest corner. So we're gonna put a camera on this right trail over here and this trail over my shoulder. And these cameras are gonna help us learn which one's GQ Jr. using. Does he prefer one trail over the other on a certain wind? You know, it's always interesting to look through your trail camera photos and just take the wind into account and see what that deer is doing, not on a mineral camera or a feed camera, but on just a natural movement camera, a camera that's on a trail or a vine scrape, something like that. We'll get these cameras placed, show you kind of what I'm talking about once we get down there. You can just see multiple trails coming down here, but they all bottleneck down on this bottom. Big crossing here, small crossing here. That's pretty much gonna wrap it up for today. This last spot is an inventory-based camera. So what I mean by that, this is just gonna be a camera that we're gonna have feed or mineral over. This camera is very different than the other two styles of cameras that I've run. I would say if I tallied up all my cameras that I run in the summer, 25% are gonna be inventory-based cameras like this one here over mineral. And then the rest of them are gonna be over trails and vine scrapes like those other cameras that we pinpointed. So hopefully a couple of these tips helped you guys today. So looking into the next couple of weeks, I gotta go back home and put some more cameras up for myself. You know, I spend so much time doing other people's projects just for work in the off season that I don't really get much time to go do my own stuff. So, you know, I've also got a couple trips that I planned this year to Ohio and one out to Nebraska. Things are picking up, super eager for October, and it can't get here soon enough.
All right, guys, well, hope you've enjoyed that episode. As you saw, a lot of big bucks between what Kaleb and Lee already have on camera, and Owen looking for Loch Ness. Cannot wait to see how that turns out. Over in eastern Iowa, Mike's got some big deer on camera with him and Rye. And since we saw you at the beginning of this episode, which, by the way, Drake Lamb, he is back in Midwest Whitetail. That's the surprise. We got rained out a few days ago on that river farm. We were able to make it to one more piece, got 2 tracks out total. And since then, I've gotten a really nice 10-pointer a couple of different days on the river piece. So excited to see how that all unfolds as we move forward. But to end this show, I'm gonna turn it over to Drake, and he's gonna kind of explain to us what we can expect, what he's been up to, and just excited to get this season rolling.
Yeah, so we've been busy here this summer, back in Iowa full-time now. So we got a lot more time to just spend around home. Justin Carnes and I have teamed up with our good buddy Skip, and we've started our own land management business. So we've got a couple farms we're taking care of, TSI-wise, doing some food plots, planting some native grasses, all those fun things. So it's something that we've looked forward to for the last 4 or 5 years, you know. So diving into that, Justin and I will be hunting this year together as a team. We've been hunting together ever since our intern year, so way back when. But
a long time.
Yeah, we just kind of became best buds. Now we're gonna hunt together this year again. So excited for that. We've got 3 deer that we're gonna look back for on some of my permission farms. There's a deer we call Swoops that we've had a couple of good encounters with. I ended up finding the shed to him back in January. Just a big old giant 9-pointer. Another farm not far from there, we've got a big short 210. Showed up late season, so that's going to be another deer we're going to be looking for, along with a couple more mature 8s there. And then on the smallest farm I have permission on, we have the deer we call Stickers. Tons of trail cam pictures with him, and hoping he shows back up. We've had him since he was 3, I believe. So we'll bring you guys those stories a little bit later probably, and dive into some of Justin's farms. I know we've been busy on his home farm doing different projects and all that stuff.
So the story's basically the same for everybody, just getting cameras out, trying to find some of these bucks back, make the farms we have a little bit better. Chasing November is coming out in the month of August. Be on the lookout for that. And overall, hope you guys enjoyed this episode. We appreciate you taking the time to watch, and we'll see you right back here next Monday.